Hey homies, it's your buddy Choppadong and I'm coming back at you with a video. Today we're going to talk about the research station, give you the generic tutorial how I would use the tool if you have a little bit of time and want to dive deep or want to take your hockey DFS game kind of to the next level. So as we dive in, I got a little surprise for you at the end too, if we can get some time in here to get it done. So, let's dive in. Obviously I represent DFSArmy.com, one-stop shopping all things daily fantasy sports, and our research tool is perhaps one of the most fun tools that we have for hockey for all of the sports that we have. It's a whole plethora of things. On this front page, I've told you before, you get good team numbers like goals for and goals against. I use this oftentimes to look at the last 10 games, 3.4 goals for New York, and then Pittsburgh allowing 2.5 goals against in their last 10 games. That tells me that New York is scoring some. Pittsburgh's playing pretty good defense. That gives me a 34 and a 25 for a total of 69. 3.4 plus 2.5, drop the decimal, 6.9 or 69. Actually, it's 5.9, isn't it? So 59. Anywho, 3.3 for Pittsburgh, 2.9 against for New York would be 62. So theoretically, Pittsburgh has a little better combination of goals for versus goals against than New York does. Doesn't mean they should win the game, but I can use that score, that generic score of 62 or 59 or whatever, and I can scroll the slate and I can compare it to Boston and New York, because Boston's matchup at a 2.6, they're not scoring. New York Islanders at 2.2 are a good defensive team. So the 2.6 and the 2.2 is a 48. 48 is well below 59. It's not a good scoring environment for Boston as compared to even New York Rangers. I can use these as apples to apples to start finding what teams are in the best environment to score tonight. Which teams have the best offense against the worst defense, and then comparatively, how's it going to stack up? Another thing that I can do is I can check these little columns here of the last 10 and the last 5 games. The green check marks mean great, meaning above average or whatever. I don't know exactly where the line is drawn, but I know that that means very, very good. The exclamation points mean middle of the road, and the X means terrible. So if you're looking across, this is a total line number. 9 plus 13 plus 21 equals 43. All that tells me is 43 for that top line is good compared to the league, compared to everybody else on the slate. That means this is one of the highest shooting teams or lines, skating lines available to you tonight. Does it mean that it's going to translate into a lot of goals? No. Goals are pretty unpredictable. And when you're playing a team like the New York Islanders only allowing 2.2 goals against, I would very much keep this number in check, and I would not just blindly use this number. I would use it in conjunction with if they were facing a team that allowed a lot of shots or gave up a lot of goals. Then I would expect Boston, the top line, to have a very good night. Okay? If I have a team that's shooting a lot and a team that facing a team that gives up goals, odds are we're going to get some goals. If I have a team that's shooting a lot facing a team that doesn't give up goals, maybe it does good, maybe it doesn't. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of use these parameters in conjunction with each other. Just like I'm doing the last 10 goals for and goals against up above that I just showed you, I'm trying to kind of explain that everything on these slates has to be kind of taken at a helicopter view, kind of looked at from above, and which teams start standing out. And on those teams that stand out, which lines, skating lines, defensive pairs, whatever, start to stand out. Okay? Obviously, in hockey, you want to correlate, and this shows us all on line 1, all on line 2, power play 1, power play 2, etc. But you can get creative in these situations when you're stacking, because you hear a lot of correlations. You don't have to just stack that line 1 and leave it alone. You can, right here with the power play 1, here with Nick Ritchie in the power play 1 down here on line 2. If you want to increase your floor a smidge in hockey, you might take Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, and Nick Ritchie. Because what you end up getting is you end up getting 2 guys that are stacked on the line together and the power play together at all times. But then you, on line 2, you infuse Nick Ritchie, who does overlap on power play 1. So on the power play 1, you could get a Nick Ritchie goal from Pastrnak and Marchand because they're on the ice together. But if you get Krejci's goal and you didn't have him, you may get the assist with Nick Ritchie on line 2, because if they did that at even strength, you've got access to a couple of other guys. I like correlating power plays a lot because it allows me to overlap these scoring lines But again, if I see this, I can put the same theory in place with Krejci and Ritchie and say, I've got them both on the ice at even strength all the time, and then they break up on the power play. So if power play 1 scores, I might have access to that goal. If power play 2 scores, I might have access to that goal. But most of the time, Ritchie and Krejci are skating together, which means most of the time, if Ritchie scores, Krejci's involved. It just gives me one little small way to branch out and maybe get lucky and pick up some additional access to scoring in that game. Okay, that's one way I would use this. And the defensive pairs, definitely, because defensive pairs overlap these lines all the time. When they're up and down the ice, these 3 skaters are going to come off the ice, these 3 skaters are going to come on the ice, and the defensive pair usually stays out there for another 20 seconds or a minute. If that happens to score a goal, a lot of times this, McAvoy here can score with the Bergeron line or the Krejci line because he's going to be on the ice with both. So really and truly, like I'm explaining with the line 1, power play 1, and the line 2, power play 1, or line 2, power play 2 type stuff, what you're getting with these defensive pairings is a little bit of overlap. You're overlapping those scoring lines a little bit. You could very easily use Bergeron, Krejci, for some kind of double center, weird, goofy combination that nobody uses. You get line 1, you get line 2, you get power play 1 and power play 2, and they are slightly correlated with Charlie McAvoy because if McAvoy scores on the power play 2, he's got Krejci out there with him. If he scores on the regular strength, he's out there with the line 1, he's got access to Bergeron. And he's going to overlap even at even strength a little bit with Krejci down here on line 2. It's just the way the game's going to go. So it spreads out. When it spreads you out and you get a little bit more stable, you increase your floor a little bit. Now, this is hockey. It's volatile. Does this make a difference? It's not a measurable difference probably tonight, tomorrow night, whatever. But over the course of a season, it will work out for you a few times and possibly save your butt. So it's just one more complicated thing to think about in this sport. But generally, you're looking at which teams are really going good right now, which teams are scoring goals, which teams are shooting a ton of pucks at the net, etc. And that's what you're using a lot of this data for. You come down here at the bottom and you've got some power play stuff. These are the power play 1, these are the power play 2, how many goals they've got on the season, how many they've got on the last 10 games. Okay? And that's what you use this tool for. Now, I've skipped the goalies tab because it's pretty self-explanatory, helps you find good goalies. The skaters tab is one of my favorites because, again, I can click all these on and off and I can start getting any of this stuff that I want. I've already clicked off the X's, so the only guys that I see are guys that are on a power play unit. I don't care if they're line 1, 2, 3, whatever. They're on a power play unit, okay? That's what I like. If you're not on a power play unit, to me, you're dead. I don't want to use you. But not everybody feels that way. You got Alex Chase on last night who had 6 shots on goal or whatever and easily brought value. I just don't see those guys in winning GPP lineups very often. They're usually on power plays. And I also like stacking power plays, just my thing. But I can come up and down this list, and one thing I like to do is I can sort by value. I can bring all the big value guys to the top of the slate for the night and start looking, and I guess I don't have the X's turned off like I thought I did, but I can come down here to some of these guys, Max Domi, Zach Werenski, and pick up some pretty cheap value on a DraftKings or a FanDuel to help get my lineup started in the right direction. Key in on a value player or two that's in a good matchup, in a good spot, and that frees up some salary right out of the gate to allow me to start picking from some studs. Okay, it's kind of a bottom-up lineup approach, if you will, but it definitely helps. Have a couple of value pieces in mind at every position, center, defense, wing, whatever, because you're going to need it at some point in your process. If you start by looking for your value, you'll automatically know where to go when you get to that point of your build. I can also sort by just pure DraftKings points and see who is supposed to be one of the top scorers on the night. That's Matthews, Kane, Pastrnak, Ovechkin. All of the studs are up here, right? And you can see how big the projection is between Matthews and Kane even. It's about 5 points. If I scroll over here, implied scoring, shot on goal, shot percentage, all this stuff is just a bunch of gobbledygook. To me, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable to the right person. Average shots per game, you can obviously sort that, and you can see who is doing a ton of shooting. These are guys you're going to want. They're going to have high floors. Shot percentage is kind of an accuracy percentage mark. Yeah, some guy kind of might have 12% on the year, but it doesn't mean he's that much better than the 8% guy. It just means maybe he's getting a little bit luckier or whatever. over time, it is measurable over large samples, but it's just like your DFS lineups. You can't measure tonight from tomorrow from the next night, and then you lose all three and you think you suck. You might be on the right train, on the right track, and you're just not getting results. That happens all the time in DFS. It happens the same in hockey. These guys are shooting tons and tons and tons of pucks on the net. Maybe they're hitting a goal post. Maybe the goalie flopped all over the ice and made a great save because he was hot that night. I don't know. But over time, yes, it absolutely will make a difference. Implied scoring chance pretty much says what it says. And a lot of it is just based on goals per game. If you're scoring 0.96 goals per game, 96% implied scoring chance. Key the word implied. You could also very much argue this number is going to come down. Nobody scores at a goal a game. It's going to come down. He's been running hot. Now, maybe he will, maybe he won't. Shots on goal and blocked shots, that's added together. The shots on goal here and the blocked shots gives you a 7 point. This is definitely your floor. Okay. Team implied scoring chance on the power play is often based on percentages again. Scroll over a little bit more. And we're looking at season-long stats, which are fine if you want to use them. But percentage of team scoring. Percentage of team scoring tells me where the offenses are concentrated. If I looked at Edmonton, I would see a ton of percentage of scoring on those top few lines. These guys, you got to get out of here. They don't really matter. But down here, Pavelski, Kane, Forsberg, if I go back over here and look, these are the guys that are doing most of the scoring for their teams. So if I look over here at Dallas, only one guy. So I wouldn't play really anybody else. I'd use Pavelski as a one-off. Most of the time they do some scoring. He's involved 66% of the time. Tells me that there's not a lot of spread. Okay? I see other ones like Patty Kane in Chicago. I see Buffalo and Buffalo. Olofsson and Eichel and even Reinert. There's a line stack for you if it correlates. Power play 1. Line 2, power play 1, line 1, power play 1, line 2. So you get 2 line 2s and 3 power play 1s. It's a great correlation. It's too bad Buffalo doesn't score more goals because when they do, it's highly predictable where it's coming from, and you can definitely use that to your advantage. That's how you, in a nutshell, use this number. You're looking for where's the concentration coming from on these teams, and can I focus all of my power there, and then if they go off tonight, be relatively confident that I've got a big chunk of that scoring. Okay? That's what that number does. We're going to probably have to come back and do another video as a part 2 because, I mean, as much as I'm talking as fast as I'm moving, we're just not getting a lot covered. If I come back here to last 10 games, it's another number that I look at. It shows you trends and tendencies. Okay? Which guys are running pretty hot? You know, if they're scoring, I can look at their DraftKings average and bring all the hot MFers right up to the top. These guys are typically scoring. I can look then and compare it to their last 5 games and see at 24 down to 11, it's cooled off. 19 to 18, steady Eddie. 18 to 16, not bad. If I look for some guys that have heated up, I could sort this by descending and look for discrepancies over here. 23 points for Palat. 16 over his last 10, 23 over his, that's a big spike of 7 points. Palat is hot. 22 to 16, same for DeBrincat. 22 to 17, 19 to 13 is a pretty good one for Trocheck. Hot skaters. This is how you find, it's a momentum sport. This is how you find guys that are rolling really good right now. You can avoid the duds that are cooling off, and theoretically, price, salary, trails production. So as these guys get hotter, their price is lagging. They are playing above their salary. They are $5,000 players playing at a $6,000 level. Same thing when they're cooling off. Austin Matthews, $9,200 right now, playing like a $7,000 player. He's overpriced. Yes, he can snap out of it on any given night, don't get me wrong. But generally speaking, you want to play guys that are bringing you value, that are outproducing their salaries. And that's a way to find is by comparing their 5 and their 10 game numbers. Again, the stable predictive number, shots on goal and blocked shots. 25 shots over the last, 5 games versus 42 over the last 10 games. That's an uptick because 25 times 2 to bring the 5-game sample to a 10-game sample, 25 times 2 should be 50. And it's under that, which means he's done more in the last 5 games than he did in the previous 5 games, which means he's seeing some form of an uptick, whether it was more ice time or better shot attempts or whatever. Okay, let's cut it here. Let's come back for part 2. And we'll set that up here in just a couple of minutes. So we'll carry on and then I'll show you my little surprise.